Venus, I don't know where to start with you. It's so phenomenal. 7 Grand Slam single titles, 14 doubles titles, 4 Olympic gold medals. Obviously, you and your sister growing up in the 80s in Compton, like, what was in the water in your household? Like, how does that happen?
Oh, Kool-Aid. Good to see everybody. Wow, loved listening to everything. Learned so much today, and so many familiar faces. So, hey, everyone. What was in the water? Richard Williams, Oracene Price. They're 2 of a kind, and my dad had a really high standard for us. So it just didn't matter how old you were, that you had to have an answer for very tough questions. So imagine being 8 years old and your dad says, why does the rich man get richer and the poor man get poorer? And the only thing you couldn't say is, I don't know. If you said, I don't know, you were in trouble. So my dad was kind of this Aristotle, Socrates, Renaissance man, and he wanted us to play this sport. So he was always teaching us how to think, but also, obviously, how to play a sport too. So there was this very high standard.
And why was it tennis? Like, what was it about tennis that made you pick up a racket at that age?
Yeah, so the interesting part is that at the time, tennis was the only sport that you could kind of play as a woman and actually make a living. Now, thank God, people are really investing in women's sports and investing in women. Not only is it the right thing to do, but it's quite lucrative. People are finding out, so get to own that other sports team, and it's a huge thing to do right now, and I'm so glad that it's finally catching up. But my dad saw this woman get a check in, 1978, and she got a check for $35,000 for 2 weeks' work. And he said, my daughters are doing that. So thank God he saw that match.
So you literally, you chose tennis because your father saw a woman on the television getting a check, and he was like, right, well, we'll do that for my child. Is that literally how it was? Was it a business plan more than it was you were passionate about playing a sport?
Yeah, I don't remember learning how to play, so
wow.
I started playing somewhere around 4 years old. So those are, most of us don't have a lot of memories at that age, so it's always been a part of my life. And my dad got a plan, taught himself, taught my mom. My mom had the meanest backhand in the West. And thank God I got her backhand, helped me a lot.
What do you, so many, especially with your father, obviously you were one of 5 girls. Your father is determined for you to be one of those women picking up a check. Was it a happy childhood? How much was it driven towards, we've got to be out there, we've got to be playing? What are your memories of that childhood, and how driven was it to the sport?
Yeah, I grew up in Compton, California, not too far from here. Slightly different at that time, and we went to school, we went to church, and we went to practice. And there were some visits to the ice cream truck too, so
right.
That was fun. But I grew up in an environment where you could become a statistic quite easily. So whether that was falling prey to violence or poverty or pregnancy, many things that women dealt with. And my dad always told us that not only that it could be us, not that it won't be, but that it could be you. You're not the exception. And the only way to not be an exception is through your actions and the things that you do. So that was, I think, quite sobering. And he would take us over to Skid Row, if you can imagine. So he would take us over to Skid Row and downtown LA, and that was the 80s too, so it was a time. And it wasn't the band, it was actually Skid Row. And he, as kids, he would bring us over there and we'd drive by, and he's like, this can be you. And so he was always putting into our head reasons to work harder, examples of things that could happen to us. So we grew up with our eyes wide open, but also very sheltered, because like I said, we were on the court, at church, or at school.
Yeah. And
so there was no, we didn't see much else.
Mm. There's obviously been lots written about your father. You've mentioned him in the first few minutes, and there's been movies made of him, successful ones. There's a line, one of the first lines in your book that I looked at yesterday, which is available to everybody in the lobby at this hotel. I believe tough love is vital, is something that you say. How much of your success is due to that tough love? How much of your success was for him, was to impress him, was to help that relationship?
Yeah, as an athlete, you have to practice brutal honesty.
Right.
Because if you are not honest with yourself, you will not win. And it's the same thing in the business world too. If you aren't honest with yourself, you cannot get to that next win. And you have to be honest very quickly. You have to be honest during that match, during that point, during that next match. If you barely squeak by, what happens? So it's so important to have that kind of aspect. So I don't really remember the question.
It's more about his tough love being behind your success.
So, yes, exactly. That's what I was getting to. That you do kind of have to have this toughness and this honesty for yourself. And I think that's a part of tough love, right? Being honest with yourself, being honest with those around you, kind of not fooling yourself, observing yourself. And in order to succeed in sport, you have to have that tough love. So my dad was quite fun. And we would go on the court and practice for many hours, but at the same time, we got to go on the slide a little bit at the public park, you know, and get on the swing, play tetherball. I don't know if you guys played tetherball growing up, but we had tetherball courts, so we got to do little things, but there are sacrifices you have to make in life. And so, you know, I didn't go to prom. No one was going to ask me because I had braces, I wasn't cute. It was a disaster, thank God, because I got to focus on sports, you know. Right. No one was asking me out, but I'm still planning on getting to prom somehow, some way.
Wow. Yeah.
Can we produce like a movie where these, you know, the athletes who didn't get to go to prom, and then they like, I feel like we can make that. I've got no doubt we can make the movie. That'll be take Venus Williams to prom. That's my last goal.
Yeah. Yeah, of everything you've achieved, the one thing she hasn't is she never got to prom. It's a great storyline for a movie. It's kind of amazing. You've obviously been an inspiration to so many. You've led the way in so many ways. I guess one of the questions I sort of was thinking about in the lead up to this conversation was, how do you spend your life dreaming of being able to win Grand Slams, being able to achieve what you have when in the 80s you're watching a sport? There's no one, maybe this is over the top to say, but there's very few people who look like you even watching the sports in the stands at Wimbledon, and let alone you have the imagination to go, I'm going to go and win that 5 times. What instills that belief in you that allowed you to think that it was possible, that has allowed the future generations to realize it is?
Thank God my dad and my mom had the imagination. And, you know, in a world that sees color all the time, I don't really. I was taught that the world would see my color, but we were never taught to see color. So we were taught to focus on ourselves and also to not care about anything else that anyone said, because at the end of the day, there was a lot of people saying a lot of things, and we talked a little bit about this last night. When I reflect back on this, when I turned pro at 14 years old, you know, it's not kind to be so mean to like people who are just, you know, kids. I was a baby. So when my sister and I were out there, we did face a lot of criticism, not a lot of welcome, because we were so different. We're unexpected, and we were very unapologetic, but we were so nice. But we would always say, I'm gonna win. And people were like, well, why would you say that? You've never won a thing. It's like, because I prepared myself. So we spent so much time preparing and visualizing. My dad would make us listen to songs. I remember in the 92 Olympics, Whitney Houston had this song, One Moment in Time. So he would play this song for us, and he would tell us to visualize yourself winning these Grand Slams and doing all these things. So it wasn't just the work we put on the court, it was a work that we did in our mind and the belief that we had as well. So I think my dad, in that sense, was a renaissance in terms of now people are really doing all this preparation, this mental preparation, but he had us doing all this stuff like in the 80s and the 90s of really how to win inside of here long before, you know, you did the training even physically.
You've touched on, obviously, Serena. She's, you know, it's so incredible what you've achieved, and that the fact that you've got a sister who's achieved so much as well. Could there have been a Venus Williams without a Serena? Could there have been a Serena without a Venus? How much did you two propel each other through competition, sisterhood, rivalry? Speak to that relationship. Fascinating one.
We have so much fun, and that's the first thing, right? Because if you win and you're not enjoying yourself, it doesn't last. And also, you didn't enjoy your life. So first of all, we had a lot of fun, win, lose, or draw. Thankfully, we got to win a lot. But at the same time, I learned so much from her. I'm 6'2" at least. I don't know if I'm still growing or not. After I start my omegas and Ds, I'm gonna grow some more probably, and I had this, person who was an athlete and all this talent, but I was kind of like the Grinch, who didn't have the heart, like that little heart, and I guess through the power of Christmas, he was able to get a heart and grow and become, I guess, amazing. And for me, I didn't know how to win. I didn't know how to get to that next level. And with Serena, I was able to watch and learn. And I realized I don't have that. I want that. And she was the first sister to win a Grand Slam in our family. And when I saw her do that, I realized I just learned. She didn't have to say a word. After that, I knew what to do. And on that occasion, she was 17. I think I just turned 19, so we were babies, we were kids. And we were in the semifinals of the US Open and singles and doubles. And we're on the doubles court in the changeover, and we're not necessarily talking about strategy, because I think we were winning. And I asked her, I said, "Are you nervous about the match tomorrow, singles match?" And she says, "Since you have to show up, why not compete?" And these are crazy words in a 17-year-old, right? I guess she was listening at those meetings with my dad, and I was not, because I choked. I showed up, but I did not compete. And after that, I realized, I learned so much from her. She went on to win the US Open, and she was 17 years old and incredible. I still don't think there's anyone playing at that level she played that day, which is insane. Go watch the match on YouTube. And in any case, I learned a lot from her. I grew up. And those are the kinds of things we did for each other without even saying a word. Of course, there were all the advices we would give, have you played so-and-so, here are the notes. Or when you lose and it hurts and no one else is there, then your family is there, your sister is there, they're your biggest fan no matter what. Of course, there's that stuff, but sometimes it's the unspoken stuff that's so powerful. And hopefully I've been like that for her.
Yeah.
But we couldn't talk as much about everything because we had to play each other, so we wanted to give each other privacy. Another time we were once again in the finals against each other and playing a semifinals at Wimbledon, and I just had sprained my thumb so bad in the previous match. Yeah. And I couldn't tell her because we had to play the next day. And I'm like, Serena, I wanted to say, can we switch sides and I can return on this side because my forehand hurt so bad, but I couldn't say a word. So we were always still so respectful of each other's privacy because since we were so close, we knew we also had to give each other space.
Yeah, I have two daughters, and they're 4 and 7, and they compete against each other a lot. I promise you, when one beats the other, they are not nice about it. They hate each other. I grant you, they're not William's sister level, and I'm not. But there must have been times where it was even more difficult if your sister won than if somebody you didn't know won. Could you lose to your sister or beat your sister, and actually you all go home and have a cup of tea? Or is it like, anybody but my sister, or was it really that level of support between each other?
Yeah, we'd be sitting we would rent a flat together until finally when she got a life and got married. Yeah, I should have stopped that. But in any case, don't tell Alexis, I know all of you guys know him. In any case, we would always rent our flat together, and we would be eating breakfast before our final, and both of us, eating pasta at 9 in the morning is the worst thing you can do, but you have to eat it. We're both okay, one more bite, this is almost over, And so we are, there's just so many things that no one else sees. And yeah, she's my little sister, I'm her big sister. We protect each other like you wouldn't imagine. Once this girl hit me in the ear in a match, and Serena confronted her 5 weeks later. And she said, you hit my sister in the ear. And the girl, she was English, so I'm going to do a warning.
Please.
English accent.
I'm excited to hear it.
She's like, I'm so sorry. Oh my God. What should I write a note?
Wow.
I kid you not, this girl says
Unbelievable.
This. Serena's intimidating. And Serena says, that will not be necessary, and walks away. So we're both super protective of each other. And growing up too, our parents said, you're each other's best friends. So we were brainwashed into that too, that no one will care for you like your family will. And so we grew up like very close, all of us, because there's 5 of us, and Serena and I are just the youngest 2. So we are all extremely close.
You've never been afraid of using your voice. It sounds like Serena wasn't either that time. And it was a great impression. Oh, it was beautiful. It sounded like I was sitting with Mary Poppins. You've never been afraid of using your voice for change. You campaigned for equal pay in the sport and actually got that changed. Your campaign managed to get equal pay in Wimbledon for the first time in 2007. Double bonus for you because you won Wimbledon in 2007, so you actually reaped the rewards of your own campaign. That equality in sport's always been very important to you, and it's still a fight that you take on to this day, and there's still more to be done, I imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, we started out talking about women's sports and how much it's growing. There's a lot more to be done, but I love seeing everything start to just ramp up, right? And then at the time, too, like I said, I started playing, I don't remember learning how to play. That's how long I've been in the game. And so finally, once you arrive to Wimbledon and you walk through the gates and then you get there and you realize, I'm not being paid the same. What in the hell happened? Because I've worked really hard to get here. So it was definitely a slap in the face. I'm so happy that no other young woman has to go through that now. She can just play the game. And it was something long overdue.
Yeah. Speaking of using your voice, you've moved into content creation. You have a production company now called Keeping It Real. What stories are you excited to tell with that and, using your voice more as a producer now too?
Thank you so much. The stories you have to tell, I think, are the ones that you know and understand. Of course, I love a sports story. And I love stories about women, a story about people who have overcome things. I've had a relatively easy life and an easy childhood, but I've come from a place where most people wouldn't think that you could make it, and to show people that it really doesn't matter where you come from, it matters who you are. We're producing a story about Althea Gibson and Angela Buxton. I don't know if you know her.
Yeah.
A crazy story about, Althea couldn't get into Wimbledon. A player had to write a letter, finally get her in. Angela Buxton was Jewish. She couldn't get in either.
Yeah.
So they decide to team up and play doubles. And they go on to win, obviously, going to tell you the ending. But it's an amazing story about what they both went through to be there. And it didn't matter where they came from, it mattered who they were, and they didn't let that stop them. So being able to tell those kinds of stories are really powerful.
Angela Buxton was my tennis teacher when I was 8 years old.
You're kidding.
Yeah. I didn't go on to
you did tell me that.
Yeah, I told you that. You say you've had to overcome a lot. 10 years ago, you were diagnosed, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong, so I apologize. Sjogren's disease. Is that? It's a chronic autoimmune disease, stiffness, dryness of your mouth. That must have been a huge amount to overcome and still be playing at the level that you are.
Yeah.
That was a lot to handle.
Yeah.
How did it change you?
I always say, or I got this actually from my hip hop teacher. He said, we don't ask for less challenges, we ask for more skills. I never got that good at dancing, but I tried, Mm-hmm. It's still not right, but in any case, that really was what it was. It was just another challenge, and I really believe in living life on my own terms. And that doesn't always mean you win or succeed, but it means you gave the effort to get there. And that's what I always gave, especially after that diagnosis. And it wasn't easy, to live with a chronic illness. And a lot of the things that they were saying before, resonated with me because I ended up changing and going plant-based. I became raw vegan for a while. That wasn't fun. It sucked. Wouldn't recommend it. And now I'm more plant-based. I focus more on my Chegan diet, which is a cheating vegan, and it's a place that everyone can be happy. Yes, you can have that chicken wing when you feel like it every now and then.
Yeah.
So. But the most important part is that, the plate is mostly plants, and I'm definitely into that routine and expect that for myself, and supplementation is always so fun. And I think in that sense, it opened my eyes to not only what's happening in our food system and what's happening in this world, what's happening with our immune systems right here in our gut and how much we're suffering there, especially in the West. And so it gave me kind of lots of different tools to understand that and take care of my health and my family's health. So there were some positives, I guess, out of like a kind of out of control situation.
You still play, you're still playing. Do you think about retirement? And the day that you do retire, do you think you'll wake up that morning and just feel a sense of relief that you're no longer, your diary, your body, your mental strength needs to go towards playing? Will it bring you joy? Will you miss it? Do you think you'll struggle? Like, how do you feel about that moment when you'll announce your retirement after the career that you've had?
Yeah, as that moment gets closer, and Serena ruined it for me, because as soon as she retired, everybody thought I retired. And sometimes they even think we're twins. So if you guys did think so, we are two separate people born on different days.
Yeah.
It's okay, now you know. But in any case, I always thought that I would just be crying, when I had to retire, because like it's all you know. You spend your whole life just like programming your mind to do that every single day. It's the first thing you think about when you wake up, and the first thing when you go to bed, and like you dream about it, and all these kinds of things. So now I realize that I won't cry, because I've definitely given everything to this sport. And also I've had the opportunity to be a part of something bigger than my own tennis match, which I had never dreamed of. I didn't know that was gonna happen. So that part is amazing. And so I think more than anything, I'll be grateful. I think that will be the feeling. And then every now and then I want to threaten to come back.
Yeah. You now are doing so many different things as an entrepreneur, as a business person, your protein food, your interior design, your content company. There's so many things that you're involved in, V-Star, Palazzo. How much has your career in sports shaped the way you view business and your action in business? How much have you learned from the game?
Everything. And the cool part is that you get to play a sport and you learn about life. Who would have guessed? You have to learn about yourself. You have to accept yourself. You have to be comfortable with yourself. You have to learn to win, learn to lose, set goals, hopefully learn to be a leader if you get to be the best. Be someone worth leading, someone worth following. There's countless lessons: resilience, determination, discipline, because through discipline we definitely get freedom. You get everything that you want through that. So just the list just goes on. That's why I always say young people should play a sport, because they learn so much about them, and you learn who you are too, and you learn who you might not be, who you might want to be, which was my case, right? So I'm eternally grateful for that.
Final question, because we're nearly out of time. You have a book that's, like I said at the beginning, everyone can pick up a copy in the reception. It's called 8 Tips to Find Your Awesome. So if I want to be Venus Williams, what are my 8 steps to find a better life, living, wellness? What are the main tips that we can take away from this?
The 8 steps. What do you know? I wrote them down.
You wrote them down. I warned you. She said you were going to give us through these 8 steps as we finish.
You did warn
off.
me. Thank God. Okay, top 8. Definitely don't take yourself too seriously. Life's too short. Believe in something greater than you. That definitely brings you down to earth and makes life easier to go through. I can't tell you what that greater power should be for you, but it's something. Honesty. Honesty always gets you to where you should be. Sometimes not where you want to be, but it gets you to where you should be faster. Be honest with yourself, honest with the people around you, all of those things. Observe yourself. There's nothing more important than observing you. And a lot of times we get to look and we look around and we want to pull the straw out of somebody else's eye, but there is a rafter in our own. So observing yourself is so important. Definitely making life bigger than you. Contribute to something that's bigger than your own hopes and dreams, because that's what really matters. Have fun. Every day should be fun. If it's not fun, fix it until it is. Move your body. Move, 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 move. Whatever that is. If it's 5 minutes a day, doesn't matter, move your body. And the 80-20 rule with everything. So 80% good, 20% chicken wing. So.
Venus Williams, everybody. Thank you.